All right. I've had issues with like audio during the front segment, so hopefully everybody hears what
Oh,
I'm saying. But
yeah.
once the music stops, we're good to go. So
It's
but I
as
always
long
like
as the
doing
people
part.
can hear the music. As long as
Yeah.
they can hear the music, I think that's all they need.
I mean, if all the things that we've done since we started CineBoiz, like which is 4 years ago now, which is wild.
It is wild.
I feel like the theme song is the best thing we've ever done.
We
We made it
peaked at theme
ourselves.
song.
Yeah, we didn't do like royalty free stuff. We made the song ourselves, so I'm really proud of it, man.
Yeah, no, you should be. It's great. It's
Yeah.
really great stuff, and it sets the vibe for talking movies. Honestly,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hello and welcome to Three Big Things. So this is a CineBoiz, but not the CineBoiz podcast. We are part of the Cork Bats podcast network. I'm Kenny from Cork Bats, head boys of the CineBoiz podcast, and Three Big Things is a podcast where I sit down with a guest or guests, in this case, just one guest, for an in-depth discussion on specific movies and TV shows. So why is it called Three Big Things? Simple. We're here to give you three big things, sometimes more, that we think make this movie or TV show special or not so
Mhm.
special. So warning, this is not a spoiler-free podcast. But again, like we said last week, this movie is coming up on being 30 years old. So if you haven't seen it yet, like that's kind of on you.
I at this point it should be like federal law that every person, every American citizen should be forced to see this movie.
I'm with you on that. I actually, so I was telling you last night when we were texting, I never actually sat down and watched this from beginning to end. Last night was the first time I've ever done that. I've only ever caught snippets of it on TV. Um, but I agree with you. This is just great
Yeah.
American cinema.
Well, and you feel like a better man for it, right? Like
Yeah.
your life is so enriched. You look great. You're glowing and better
Thank
than
you.
you've ever have before.
Thank
And
you.
you're definitely, I mean, you are by far the best looking Cineboy. So that is just going to tell you that you're only even that much more handsome.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. It is debatable, but I do appreciate that. But yeah, so yeah, not a spoiler-free podcast. And this week, we are continuing on with our Jean-Claude Van Dammuary series, and we're discussing 1995's Sudden Death. And I will
Mm.
be joined by the godfather of Cork Bats himself, Mr. Austin Huff. Austin, how are you?
I'm great, Kenny. And as we discussed, to kind of peel back the curtain a little bit, I am currently going through some frozen pipes issues in my home. But I am so honored to be talking with you about the legend Jean-Claude Van Damme, who actually got a chance to play between the frozen pipes in this movie.
That is true.
Sudden Death. Yeah. Just,
That is very
people
true.
forget. People forget he netted one of the biggest saves of Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final that year.
That is in Stanley Cup history is one of the best saves of all time. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so yeah, like I said, we're going to be talking about Sudden Death. If you're not familiar with Sudden Death, whenever I know you've been doing JC Van Damuary,
Mhm.
for several years now, and I've been wanting to go through these movies and every January, and this is the first year we've actually gotten around to doing it. And this is one that you've always said is like one of your favorites. So we've been wanting to save it for you. And yeah, I mean, essentially, oh, oh, camera switch.
Yeah, went with the camera change there. Yeah.
All right, we're good.
Camera
We're
change.
good.
Yeah, it's kind of like a line change in hockey. Only I went with the camera change. I was coming down with 104 fever, much like Tolliver did in the movie,
Yeah.
and and I feel like this is just better because I was like glitching earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
But you look
I
good.
wanted
Yeah,
to
I mean,
stop
everything
the
everything
glitching.
seems to be working just fine. So
The only reason I look good is because I rewatched Sudden Death last night. So
you as well are glowing. You can tell. So yeah, I mean, if you're not familiar with Sudden Death, it is from 1995. It stars, of course, Jean-Claude Van Damme. It's directed by Peter Hyams. You know what I'm going to do? I'm actually going to go ahead here and get the trailer going. So, for people who have not seen it, just to kind of give them a taste,
yeah.
get this trailer on the screen real quick, and we'll just play it.
As we get ready for the 7th and final game of the Stanley Cup Finals, you can feel the electricity in the air, and there's no question, it just sends a chill up your spine, Paul.
That's a fact, Mike. And to make things even more exciting, the Vice President of the United States is here this evening.
Don't leave your seats.
Doesn't look too good.
911 emergency services.
I'm calling you from the Civic Arena. The Vice President is being held hostage in the owner's box. And they've got my daughter, too.
What is your objective?
$1,700,000,000.
We're still evaluating the situation.
They want money, a lot of it. Give it to them.
Do not try any kind of rescue. Do you understand me?
If you're not gonna pay, say so. I'll get my daughter.
When the game ends, everyone in this box and in this arena will die by explosion, fire, and panic.
Tonight, 17,000 hockey fans have been taken hostage.
Enough bombs have been planted on this building to stop all the clocks in the hemisphere.
But only one of them knows it.
I'm gonna try to stop you.
I know where the bombs are, so I know where you're going.
Then come and get me.
We are going to do this by the numbers.
What number was that?
Now he has more to lose than anyone.
I said, no vehicles on the grounds, no helicopters in the air. What part of that did you not understand?
Jean-Claude Van Damme. Powers boost. Sudden death.
Hell yeah.
Man, terror goes into overtime.
Hell yeah. So yeah, if just a kind of quick plot summary of Sudden Death, if you haven't picked it up, but basically, according to IMDb, a former fireman takes on a group of terrorists holding the vice president and others hostage during the 7th game of the NHL Stanley Cup Finals. Yeah, I mean, real quick before we get into our 3 big things, the fireman choice, not necessarily somebody that you would consider to go in and, have gunfights and pick fights with people. Heroes nonetheless, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was an interesting choice, making him a fireman.
One of the first, really one of the only movies I can think of that starts out with, within the first 5 minutes of the movie, a death, and not only a death, but the death of a little girl. Like, wow. Okay, we're firing on all cylinders out of the gate here with this one. And I mean, like, not since like Drew Barrymore getting murdered in Scream was I like that shocked by a death that quickly into a movie. And
yeah,
it's just like, oh, okay, so we're setting the stage that anything is fair game in this movie.
Yeah, and I'll say it doesn't start very fun. It starts very depressing, but I promise it gets fun.
And then it just hits you with that movie. Two years later, after the therapy and after, he left the, I guess, because he's not technically like a fireman after those 2 years pass. I guess he becomes like more of like a fire marshal.
He's a fire marshal for the building that the Penguins play in.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Which, rest in peace to the old Igloo. That was one of the great arenas of all time. Cool and just completely demolished it for what is now PPG Paint Arena, which is not near as cool. It's so basic. So
yeah, does it open up to the sky?
Yeah, no, I don't think it does. Not many arenas. Like, that had to have been the first retractable roof arena ever, right? Like,
for at least for like a hockey or like a basketball arena, you never see that.
Yeah,
like for football, I mean, you can kind of see it from just bigger stadiums, maybe with a covered roof that retracts, but you never see it on like smaller arenas like that.
Okay, let this be the case for us to bring back retractable roofs on hockey and NBA arenas.
Yeah.
Imagine like a Lakers game outdoors. Like, that'd just be awesome.
That'd be sweet. Yeah,
they've got the weather for it.
Yeah, if you run for president and that's your platform, 100% you're getting my vote.
I'm adding that to the platform. I've actually got a list of things that I'm putting on my presidential platform. I'm running in 2024. I don't know if you know, because I'm finally old enough to do so. So congrats. I'm adding that. I'm going to add that to.
All right, cool. You have my vote. There you go. So yeah, I mean, we'll just kind of go ahead then and get into our three big things. And the first big thing on sudden death. Now I know that this is Jean-Claude Van Dammuary. We're here to highlight the man's career, and really just put him on a pedestal.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things we kind of arrived on before we started recording is that this really isn't a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie.
Yeah, it feels a little disgraceful to do a movie in Jean-Claude Van Dammuary that is not a movie about and all around Jean-Claude Van Damme, but you can't watch this movie and say that he is the star of this film.
No,
someone stole that title and, dare I say, took that title hostage.
Yes. Touche. Yeah, this is very much a Powers Booth movie, which
Without question.
Peace, Powers Booth. But truly, like watching the movie last night, like that is what made this movie so fun for me. It's such a like great performance, and he's such a bastard. But he's also really kind of charming. As the bad guy.
The dude just munching on shrimp while holding our country's second in command hostage, all with the heart rate of a librarian. Like the guy just absolutely nailed the role. And his name, in his character's name in the movie, Joshua Ross, which is funny that I bring that up because his name is not once mentioned in the entire movie.
Yeah,
but if you go to but in the credits, he is listed as Joshua Foss, I believe. Yeah, Joshua Foss. So shout out to Joshua Foss, just a diabolical terrorist. A guy who was, I guess, served in the military, went rogue, and just wanted a lot of money. And look, who's to say he's just chasing the American dream is all he's doing.
Yeah, that's all it is. I mean, there's a little bit of criminality to it, but like when it's all said and done, that's really what's going on here. And then also just when you think of like a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie, like, and don't get me wrong, we did our Bloodsport podcast last week. I had never seen Bloodsport before. I don't think I would recommend Bloodsport to anybody. Now I understand people love Bloodsport, and it's nostalgia wise, people look at it through rose-colored glasses. But like, if you're watching it for the first time, 35 years later, it's kind of not great. So this movie, though, like watching it, I would recommend this movie to almost anybody. It's very enjoyable. But when you think of like a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie, you think of martial arts, fighting, and just like action, where there's definitely some of that in this movie, but he's definitely not highlighted as like a martial arts hero in this movie.
No, if anything, like he doesn't fight his first henchman in the movie until 37 minutes in.
Right.
That's pretty unique for a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie. Like that is what he is known for. And like this, like bad guy is not like Powers Booth is not necessarily like an action star. It feels like in most Jean-Claude Van Damme movies, like you're going up against like a Jason Statham type actor where that, can do stunts and can do his own stuff. But this is more of like hey, I'm going to outsmart you while you do all of your action stunts and everything.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So I wouldn't say slower. Slower is not the right term. It's not a slow movie by any means.
No.
It's pretty fast paced. It's pretty fun. But yeah, it's not, typical. It's not what I expected as far as like, what I'm going to see Jean-Claude Van Damme do. And to your point, talking about, especially like the first probably like 30 minutes of the movie. Yes, it starts off with Jean-Claude Van Damme, but really it's setting up, the terrorists in Power.
Yeah, it's setting up all of the important storylines. Like obviously, like he's got these two kids, and his daughter kind of is more fond of him than his son is. And he just happened to drop a line while touring the locker room before Game 7 of the Stanley Cup, mind you, that he used to play a little minor league hockey, which sets up a massive scene later on.
Yeah.
Like it's just it's just that character development, which to Sudden Death's credit, you don't often get in a lot of action movies. It's just like, oh, hey, boom, here's a movie and here's a explosion. Like this one actually took the time to develop a little bit. And even the opening scene with the daughter dying in the fire, or not the daughter, but the little girl dying in the fire. That right there like sets you, oh, okay, this is why, this is going to trigger some emotions later on. There's a reason they showed us that. And sure enough, like to me, this is the perfect movie, but there's one stipulation I'll hold, which I'll hold till the end, but the perfect movie in my opinion.
Yeah, I have one too, but I will say this, the setup for this movie is done very well. And then the other thing is, when you go to like Rotten Tomatoes and you see the Rotten Tomatoes score, I think it's like 50% and the audience score is like 29%. And like, I don't often disagree with the Rotten Tomatoes score, but this movie is done well enough where it deserves to be at least in the 70s.
Yeah, it didn't do well at the box office, which is wild. Like Bruce Willis was one of the guys considered for the role, which is ironic because this was kind of mimicked as Die Hard on ice.
Yeah.
But he turned it down because he had to turn it down because he was doing Die Hard with a Vengeance at the time. And this movie as a total run failed to make as much as Die Hard with a Vengeance made on its opening weekend.
Oh, yikes. Not great.
I don't get it. I don't understand why that even the trailer that we just watched, opening up with Gary Glitter's Rock and Roll Part 2.
It's a good trailer.
You're like, oh, I'm feeling this. And it's a sports movie and it turns into action. Like how this movie did not do better, I don't understand. I think it was ahead of its time because if that movie comes out today, and honestly, I do think they should make a remake.
I think they did make a remake. This movie's
making bank.
Did they not make a remake?
Well, they did. It was like, kind of like it was like remembering sudden death or returning to sudden death or something. It was made in, was it in 2020? I think it was like,
okay, I see. Yeah. Okay. That doesn't count.
It was because this movie,
basketball arena. No. Okay.
This movie was supposed to be it was originally written as like a comedy action movie that was like supposed to be extremely lighthearted. And, but the script, I guess, was taken and turned into like an actual action movie.
Yeah. It doesn't have I mean, there is kind of a element of it being a Die Hard clone. But the comedy, it's not very comedic. The only thing that's like funny is how like and he's not even really that funny, but Powers Booth's character is a little bit more like, sarcastic.
He's got those he kills with the one-liners. Like after he kills the mayor and hits with the line, well, mayor's not running for re-election. Like, damn, that's smooth. That's like, and there's a lot of times it's like in action movies, those are oftentimes the cheesiest lines, but Powers delivered them with like such confidence and smooth confidence that it was, I don't know. To me, it worked. And it is ironic that he kills the mayor. And if you want to go full circle, he then later on in his career plays the mayor of Nashville in the TV show Nashville. And then if you want to go full circle, takes the vice president hostage, goes on to play the vice president in the TV show 24.
Yeah. Self-fulfilling prophecy, probably.
Right? Full circle, Powers Booth.
Yeah. And just a last point on this one, the name Powers Booth might be top 5 all-time most kick-ass names.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, think about this. Look at this, like on the marquee for this movie, you're putting sudden death, Jean-Claude Van Damme, and then right next to it, Powers Booth. Yeah. Like that, those are just two of the greatest names of all time. And like, if you're putting out a Mount Rushmore of just names, those are two of the faces on there. And you might even just put both those faces up there twice. Yeah. Just right next to each other. That's how great their names are.
It's just a lot of strong consonants with both of those names. It's hard.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
So yeah, I mean that's kind of our first big thing. Like if you're expecting a full-on action martial arts Jean-Claude Van Damme movie, I'll let you know he's in the movie. He does a good job, but this is a Powers movie and it's worth a watch.
He's going to take your heart hostage.
For sure. And then kind of moving on to our next big thing, which is really more of a question that I think we need to debate. And it's one that we asked ourselves before we got started, but Austin, is sudden death a sports movie?
I'm so glad you asked this question, Kenny. It is an important question to ask for honestly every movie you go to. Is it a sports movie?
Yes.
To
Every
me,
movie.
I'm going to argue yes.
Okay.
Because not only is the entire movie centered around Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final, but he also sees more time in goal in this movie, playing as that is stealing Tolliver's pads while Tolliver's out, which I have a bone to pick with that here in a sec, but he gets in goal, and he spends more time in goal than Julie the Cat Gaffney does in that one game in Mighty Ducks, because she commits a penalty and gets 10-minute misconduct, which is also how then Jean-Claude Van Damme gets kicked out of the game. So I think, yes, without question, 100%, this is a sports movie. Do you agree?
I do agree. And I think my reasoning for it is because of how well they interlace the game throughout the movie. So like obviously the terrorist plot is like if they don't get money by the end of like certain like each period, somebody in the presidential or vice presidential booth is gonna die. And so they interlace the kind of the tension and the stakes with the actual game that's going on. And then on top of that, they're keeping track of the game throughout the whole movie. Like there's like whole scenes where they cut into the game just to kind of, you know, show what's going on with the game. You know, who's winning, how much time is left. Like, so, and then, yeah, there is the whole scene with Jean-Claude Van Damme, you know, playing goalie for a little bit as well. So yeah, to me, it's very much a sports movie.
There are parts of the movie where I'm more invested in the game than I am
Right.
detonating those bombs. Honestly, I was like, during the most, well, not the most climactic, but one of the most climactic scenes in the movie was at the end of the third period, time winding down, and Jean-Claude's like, I don't have all the bombs. What are we gonna do? That entire scene, you're hearing the play-by-play announcers calling the game, like during fight scenes, during shootouts in the weight rooms. That to me was like, oh yeah, they want you to know what's going on with this game while it's happening.
Yeah, I do have one slight bone to pick with that though. Not necessarily with that aspect of it, but just with the movie choice in general here. At the end of the game, the third period, yes, they tie the game at the last second. And so then the terrorists are like, I guess we just got to give them more time then because the game's not over. Like
I know they really played by the rules, didn't they?
Right. It seemed a little bit too on the nose as far as playing by the rules. Like, oh, well, if the game goes into overtime, then I guess we're going to give everybody more time to maybe get out of the situation.
Well, and I didn't understand their plan to begin with like, okay, we've placed bombs all around this arena and we're going to just detonate them one by one. I'm thinking, well, first of all, once you detonate one bomb, isn't it like the kind of the cat's out of the bag? It's like,
yeah,
you kind of have to then just detonate all of them. But then what was Powers Booth's plan there? Like, why is he?
You're in the arena, bro.
That's right. Like, I'm thinking, like, you're not in like some fail safe like area. Like if the stadium explodes, you will explode with it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna cut him some slack. Maybe the logic isn't all there, but I'm having a good time. You know?
Yeah.
So
no, sure. I don't want to nitpick and or any of that. But to go back to the question, is it a sports movie? Yes, I think 100%. Just based solely on the number of fight weapons used to kill henchmen.
Yeah,
I have got a list of the fight weapons that
yes.
were used to kill henchmen in this movie. Are you ready for this, Kenny?
Yes.
First off, an industrial dishwasher. We all know the scene I'm referring to.
And if you've ever worked in food service real quick, like, you know, those things like have burned the shit out of you at one point or another.
Oh, there's
so those
so many
are
things in a kitchen. Yeah, there's so many things in a kitchen that I'm terrified of. And that only played into it. A pork chop bone.
Yeah.
That
the most violent kill of the movie.
And just like to have the wherewithal while he's getting strangled out to take that pork chop bone and hit it against a table to sharpen it somehow, like real quickly, and then jab it in the dude's neck. A squirt gun lighter combo, a weight machine, which I'm presuming was a weight machine for your thighs, the way it closed in.
I think so. Yes, I think it was like a thigh master situation.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Good. You can tell I haven't been to the gym much this year. And then the hockey skate sharpener.
Yeah.
That to me right there tells me without question, if anyone gets killed with a hockey skate sharpener, it's a sports movie.
Yeah. And not just a hockey skate, like the actual skate sharpener. Like that's
right.
Yeah, because
Which
skate
at first I thought at first I thought it was the skate because he kicks the dude and he falls down and his face is all bloody, and then Jean-Claude Van Damme leaves, but then that guy comes back to life. So it's like, okay, the skate didn't kill him, but the sharpener will.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think there's much of a debate there. Like, if anybody disagrees with us, I guess you can like reach out and say, "Hey, sudden death is not a sports movie," and then we can go from there. But between the two of us, I think we're on the same page.
You want to know something funny? Jaromir Jagr wasn't happy with the movie that the hockey player wearing his number 68 was on the ice for 3 of the Chicago Blackhawks goals, making him a -3 for that game. So that right there, if you got actual players getting pissed at how they play in the movie, yeah, sports movie.
And there's enough information to deduce that from this, like meaning that they're showing enough of the game for you to understand that he's down 3. So it's a sports movie.
Right.
Yeah,
it's a sports movie. They show more hockey in that movie than Miracle. I don't fact check me on that, but it's true.
I know you're right. I know you're right. All right. Well, cool. So yeah, definitely a sports movie. No debate here. So that kind of brings us to our last big thing. And I think honestly, this is what makes the movie like, I think this is probably the most memorable part of this movie. And I think it's something that we need to, and you can probably add it to your presidential platform if you want, but I think we need to lobby for more mascot fights in movies.
Oh, Kenny, I'm glad you brought this up. This is the scene that gets remembered. Okay. Yeah. If in Sandlot it's the Wendy Peppercorn kissing scene, or I'm trying to think, like Jurassic Park, it's the first, when they first lay eyes on the dinosaur, like it's the scene. Or no, it's the T-Rex breaking out of the fence for the first time. Like there's just, every movie has that scene where that is the movie right there.
Yeah.
And for this one, it is the kitchen fight scene with Iceberg, aka Mr. Icy, or Icy. It is that to me is cinema to the highest form. I cannot get over the fact that they said, you know what we need in this movie? It's a movie taking place at Game 7 of the Stanley Cup. A fight with a hockey player? No. No. I don't know. Maybe a fight with like a security guard? No. I want to fight with the freaking mascot. And this was one of the scenes. Remember how earlier I told you that this movie was originally written to be a comedy? That scene was the only scene left in from the original script that made this movie a comedy.
Yeah.
So the fact that they took a ridiculous concept from a comedy script and kept it in for the live action movie is, to me, that is chef's kiss. It was awesome. And why on earth did the mascot not take her head off during the entire fight? Because if I'm in a fight as a mascot, I'm at least taking the head off. At least.
Maybe like some sort of like cushion, like if you get punched in the face, like maybe for protection. But I also think like, I love that you brought that up about it being left in, because I just like to see that meeting where somebody's reading that script and be like, oh yeah, we can't get rid of that. That's gold. And it works. Like thinking about like I mentioned earlier, this was a movie that I never actually sat down and watched from beginning to end, but I've seen bits and pieces of it on TV throughout the years. And anytime somebody brings it up, that's the first thing I think about, is a fight with the mascot in the kitchen. It sticks in your head. It's great. And there's definitely, I feel like there's room in Hollywood for more scenes like this with real sports mascots. Now they call him Icy. I think you mentioned that it's Iceberg in real life. I don't know the exact name.
But we couldn't figure out why they kept referring to it as Mr. Icy or Icy in the movie. But the the Penguins mascot is named Iceberg. It said clearly on the back of the jersey, and I Googled it too. It's like it is Iceberg, but
so
that to me is the biggest question of that fight scene, more so than why she didn't take her head off during the fight. But you talked earlier about how like working in industrial kitchens like that, like or just kitchens at restaurants. I'm an Olive Garden alum. I'm a Ruby Tuesday alum. I've worked in many a kitchen in my day. To me, I learned. Thank you. I appreciate that. To me, I learned more about the dangers of the kitchen from that scene than I did from all my years working in restaurants. So I think that should just be the new training video for anyone getting hired at any Darden restaurant, any other, like a steakhouse, whatever. Just watch that scene and be like, look, guys, these dishwashers are dangerous. Pots and pans being left out, they could jump up and hit you. Don't put peppercorn in your eyes or whatever that was he tossed in her eyes through the mascot head. There's just a lot to learn, and this movie that scene could teach a lot.
Now, look, we're not saying this will happen, but this could happen. Like and then you just pop that in. And you show them and be like, oh, okay. Like, I guess you could get burned. By the industrial
we've seen more ridiculous training videos in our days, right? Like,
for sure. And at least you're having fun with it too. I've seen some really boring ones, so it would be a lot more exciting. But I do think that there is room in Hollywood for bringing in like actual mascots for more fights. Like, I would love to see my beloved KC Wolf in a fight in a movie. I'd pay if that's the movie. Absolutely, I'm paying to see that.
I'll take it a step further. I'd see Chief Saholic in a fight, in a prison fight. He's a wolf, right? Like, let him. Make him wear the if he gets in any prison fights, they should make him wear his Chiefs KC Wolf suit.
Is he still missing?
I have no idea.
I can't. Honestly. I've lost track of that story, but like I thought maybe he escaped it. I don't know. Anyways,
I've lost a few things around my house, so it's possible he could have stolen them.
That's fair. That's fair. Makes sense. But maybe even like a fight with like Gritty. Like, I'd love to see Gritty in a fight in a movie.
Oh, Gritty would be great. That's a good call. Hit Gritty. I just like the idea of the Michigan State mascot, because I just like how he's like human. Tough. I'll tell you who I don't want to see a fight between. The Wildcat from Kansas State. That dude is just a mascot head. Everything else, there's no suit, no costume. Get out of here with that. Or Purdue Pete. Purdue Pete is kind of the same way, with just the plastic head and no body. Like, it's just a human body with a head on. And those kind of mascots, you guys can get out. But
this is just colleges trying to save money. I don't like that.
I'll match your Gritty with Big Red from Western Kentucky.
Yeah,
give me a fight between those two.
That'd be great. That'd be great. I mean, those are kind of our three big things. And so really this kind of last segment as we go out is I want to give, an opportunity to Austin and also myself to kind of give you an idea of whether or not we would recommend this movie. So with that being said, Austin, after revisiting Sudden Death and talking about it today, would you recommend this movie?
Yes, without question, I would. As I said earlier, I do believe this is the perfect movie. But there is one thing that I am hung up on, and you're probably like, oh, is it the fact that they gave stadium tours before Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final, which you would never see happen? No. And you're like, oh, is it because no one stops Iceberg while he's stealing Jean-Claude Van Damme's little girl while walking through the concourse to take a photo or anything like that? No. Is it because even though hockey players are the toughest men on earth, the toughest athletes on this planet, and in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final, 2.5 periods in, the starting goalie, Tolliver, asked to be taken out because of a fever? No. Was it the power boost plan that we already talked about to blow up the arena despite him being in said arena? No. The only gripe I have with this movie is the fact that they kidnapped and held hostage the vice president. Why is it the vice president? You could literally make the script 150 words shorter if you just took out the word vice. Just make him the president. Why would you write it otherwise. You already made it Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. Like, you made it the wildest game. You made Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final go into sudden death overtime, but instead you said, no, but we're only going to let the vice president be. Honestly, if the vice president gets held hostage, I don't think it's as big of a story.
It's really not.
Like,
and that's upsetting to say and admit, but I think you're right.
Like, no, name a vice president ever. You can't. Like, that's the thing. That's my point. Just make it the president. Like, that, it wouldn't have been that hard, and it wouldn't have been that different. Secret Service would have been there. It would have, Powers Booth would have probably gotten his money a lot sooner had he just kidnapped the president.
Yes.
So it's just ridiculous to me, and that's been the one gripe I've always ever had with this movie, was just make it the vice president.
Yeah. Yeah. If it were the vice president, I think would have made it great is if you keep him as the vice president. Why me? I don't do anything. Like, I would have loved that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm with you. It seems kind of silly. And if, I'm Jean-Claude Van Damme and my daughter is also in the same room that the vice president has been kidnapped in, and they're threatening to, hey, if you come after your daughter, we'll kill the vice president. I'm like, cool. Like, that's
I don't
fine.
care. Yeah, right.
I'm
It's not
fine
like
with it.
it's if the vice president dies, like, okay, so it goes like the president is still in command of our country.
President's
Like,
still president. Yeah.
It's not, it does nothing to the government at all. In fact, I don't even think the government, that's probably why, if you remember in the movie, they were very slow to like end things. And that's one of the reasons why Jean-Claude Van Damme was getting so angry with like how slow they were to enter the building and to stop this. It's like, well, it's just the vice president.
It's the vice president. What do you expect us to do? It's Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals. We're not just going to shut it down.
Right. To the scriptwriters, if you want to leave in the amazing quote that I thought was a great quote, why do you tell everyone you're the Secret Service? If you want to be a secret, don't tell everyone. Powers Booth delivers that line. It's hilarious. It's a great line. It's really something to think about. Yeah. You can leave that line in if you just make it the president. It does. Yes. You don't even have to take that line out of the movie.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, minus the vice president angle, you would definitely recommend it.
Oh, yeah. Aside from that, look, perfect movie. It's the perfect movie.
So I'll say this too, just to kind of round it out. Like, as far as my recommendation goes, I actually wrote down last night in my notes, perfect movie, no notes. I wrote that a little early because there was one that came up, and I'll explain that. But I really thought this movie was so great. I don't understand why it has such low scores on Rotten Tomatoes. It's so fun. It's not like, it doesn't at any point get like, to me, it doesn't get muddy. Like, I feel like a lot of movies that start strong end up getting really muddy, and like, they just got to wrap it up, finish it. There's a few things that maybe some, loose ends that didn't get tied up, but nothing like really to complain about. My only complaint about this movie is at the close to the very end, when Powers Booth is getting away in the helicopter. I forget exactly how it happens, but the helicopter then goes up and then down, just not a nosedive, but it's going down backwards, and it's perfectly straight, just falling out. Now look, I'm admittedly not a smart man. Like, I don't understand science that well. I don't understand physics that well, but I know that if you have a helicopter that goes straight up, it's not just going to come straight down. It's going to go like this. And you can tell in that scene, like, how fake it looks just by how it's going down. Otherwise, that's my only note. Great movie. Well, absolutely love it. Would recommend it.
Look, I can probably tell you why they did it that way. And this only makes me even more angry at the 90s moviegoers for not going and seeing this movie and making it do better than it did. Because one, there was a plan for a sequel in 1997, but they scrapped it because it did not do well at the box office. But but also with that scene, if this movie does well, and I was not old enough to spend money in the 90s. Okay. I was not, I did not make enough lemonade stand money to go and see this movie on my own, and it was also rated R, so I couldn't.
Right. Yeah,
but
too young.
If that movie does well, Universal Studios, you're getting a sudden death ride where you are on that helicopter and you are you're shooting up and then you are falling right back down.
Oh man, that'd be a great ride.
And that to me is probably why they said, let's make the choice to make this just go straight down, defy the laws of physics and just go straight down.
Yeah.
But
I feel like
expect them to think of.
I feel like what's that? There's a movie with Wesley Snipes. It's like Drop Point or something like that.
The Fan, another sports
Yeah.
movie.
But there's like a movie that has a ride at Paramount's Kings Island in Ohio. It's like Drop Zone, I think is what it's called. If that has a ride, I think Sudden Death deserves a ride.
Sudden Death would have definitely, at very least at Cedar Point. They've got a ride for every movie that's ever come out.
Sure. All right. Well, I mean, those are our 3 big things. So Austin, again, thank you so much for joining me. That was a great time. I'm glad that we finally got around to this and I finally got the chance to actually sit down and watch the movie.
No, Kenny, I'm so glad you did. Happy Jean-Claude Van Dammuary to you and your family.
Yeah, so I do know for sure. I think when we originally said we were going to do 4 of these, I think it might only end up being 3. I think we're going to be moving one maybe to next year, but we do have at least one more coming up. Time Cop will be our next episode. And I'll be doing that with other CineBoiz, Mob and Tom. But yeah, so obviously CineBoiz podcast, you can find us wherever podcasts are found. Also be sure to find us our videos on demand on the Corkbats YouTube page, which is youtube.com/Corkbats. Also, be sure to visit the Corkbats website, corkbats.com. You can follow the CineBoiz on Twitter and Instagram at the CineBoiz. And then, of course, you can follow Corkbats on Twitter and Instagram at Corkbats and also TikTok. Don't forget TikTok.
Don't forget TikTok.
Yeah.
Next month, should we celebrate Feb Booth Airy?
Oh, man. Honestly, I don't think many people would listen or watch the episodes, but I would do it just because... Yeah,
just a month long of Powers Booth content. It's only a 28-day month, so 29, I guess, this year. So look, I mean, maybe we could get away with it.
Yeah, it would be fun. But yeah, again, Austin, I appreciate you, my man. Thanks for joining us.
No, thank you for having me, Kenny. You guys do tremendous work, and I appreciate you allowing me to be a part of it for the perfect movie.
It truly is.
Vice President.
It truly is the perfect movie other than the Vice President. Yeah, I'm with you on that. All right, man. Well, I'll see you soon.
Thanks, Kenny.
Graphic for outros. I need to just make one. For now, it's just us talking as the music plays out. But there you go.
I just imagine like a house band playing this.
Yeah.
Like Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah.